Hello, in this lesson we are going to talk about the impact of optimizing assessment for developing 21st century skills. So let's start. Here are our contents. There are 5 contents. The first one we talk about overview of assessment, different kinds and purpose of assessment, what to assess, the impact of assessment for 21st century skill, and the last one we will talk about conclusion of the whole lesson. Number 1, we will go through in short about the overview of assessment. It is easy to assume that assessment simply involves giving tests to students and grading them. Theories of learning suggest a role for assessment that involve much more than simply making up tests and giving grades. Transforming assessment to measure 21st century skills. To ensure that the student actually acquire and deeply 21st century skill, we need a wide-range spectrum of assessment to evaluate their performance in the required areas, equip them with the ability to interact with peers and trained professionals, and provide them with appropriate and timely feedback that is seamlessly integrated into the learning experience or UPP, GASTA, Miss Levy, and SUFFER in 2010. Point number 2, we will go through the different kinds and purpose of assessment. The goal of assessment as learning is to guide students to be active, self-regulated, and critical assessor in their process of learning. Assessment of 21st century skills, like assessment in general, fall under 2 broad categories: summative and formative. So let's talk about summative assessment and its purpose. Summative assessment focuses on making judgment about how well individuals do at the end of the instructional sequence, which is also considered assessment of learning. The purpose is to assess learning, how well a student is acquiring knowledge and skills and developing his cognition at a specific point in time. And here is the example of summative assessment. Example of summative assessment are end-term exam, midterm exam, and standardized state tests that quantitatively measure the current level of learning of a student. Formative assessment, also defined as assessment for learning, emphasize evaluating learners' progress during the process of learning. The role of formative assessment can be reinforced and extended by assessment as learning, which encourage students to monitor their own learning by using self-peer assessment and a reflection to decide what they can do and they know. The purpose of formative assessment is to principally utilize the information gained through the assessment to guide change in the instructional and curriculum methodology in a way that would not be possible without this feedback for the explicit aim of improving the student learning. And here is example of formative assessment. The ATC 21X technology-based assessment of collaborative problem solving, CPS. Point number 3, what to assess. Define skill. We will cover the what to assess. A report on the NRC workshop CUNIC 2011 indicated that giving specific operational definition of construct within the scope of 21st century skill is essential in the development of assessment tasks. According to the workshop committee, the definition must be specific in clarifying whether the target skill or construct is domain general or domain specific. It means that it should be clear if student can solve a problem or think critically in the present or absent of that subject and transfer their skill from one context domain to another. For assessment purpose, skill must be defined in measurable terms to design assessment tasks and determine the kinds of information to be collected. Rigorous assessment method cannot, of course, be developed without clear definition of skill and competency in question. And point number 4, we will go through the impact of assessment on 21st century skill. The positive effect of summative assessment. They produce data that useful, valid, reliable, and fair, so that it can be used to inform curricular or policy decision. The impact of formative assessment. The impact of formative assessment on general student achievement. While there is convincing evidence that formative assessment is indeed highly effective in raising level of student achievement, see Black and William 1998, Natrillo 1987, and Cross 1988. The research should be extended and strengthened. The relative impact of formative assessment method for underachieving students. Several studies show that formative assessment method have an even stronger impact for underachieving students. Effective formative approaches for students based on gender, ethnicity, socio-economic status, or age. As noted earlier in the study, there is a need for more refined knowledge of what work for students in different socio-economic or demographic groups. The expansion of teacher repertories to meet identified student needs. As noted earlier, if teaching is limited, the quality of student assessment will also be limited. Teachers need a healthy repertoire of approaches to setting up the learning situation and responding to student learning needs. Connection between students' emotion and learning. The connections between positive emotion and improved learning are a major theme of neuroscientific research on learning. Prior researchers, along with work in the area of educational psychology, can inform students on the impact of different formative methods on student emotion, motivation, self-perceptions, and achievement. And the last point is conclusion. So let me wrap up our lessons. Education experts recommend a balanced approach to using formative and summative assessment and advocate that both types are important in order to optimize teaching and learning. Assessment must be seen both as an instructional tool for use while learning or acquiring formative, and as an accountability tool to determine if learning has occurred summative. Both functions are important and should be used in concert in the classroom. And here are some our references that we found information from. So please refer this to get more information or more detail. So thank you very much for your attention.